At the beginning of the episode, a group of construction workers excavates on a remote mountain. They uncover a massive Buddha statue buried in the ground. Upon discovering it, the country's governor, Jiangsu, decides to have the statue cleaned and displayed at the government office despite a monk's advice. The Buddha's eyes are covered with blindfolds, prompting the governor to instruct the workers to remove them and clean the statue. The blindfolds bear inscriptions, leading the construction supervisor to assign Won-seok, one of the workers, to carefully store them. In the morning, Won-seok carefully removes the blindfold covering the Buddha's eyes and begins washing the statue with clean water. While he's cleaning, a crow lands on the statue and seems reluctant to leave. At that moment, his supervisor comes over to pay him. They both admire the serene gaze of the Buddha's eyes as they glance up at them together. The scene shifts to a taxi driver who is preparing for work, despite his pregnant wife's concerns urging him to stay home. Assuring her, he sets off in his taxi. On the road, Won-seok's truck carrying the Buddha statue narrowly avoids colliding with the taxi. The close call frustrates the taxi driver, prompting him to shout. As he directs his frustration towards Won-seok, his attention is unexpectedly drawn to the Buddha statue in the truck. Inadvertently, he catches sight of the Buddha's eyes as well. Meanwhile, Han Do-kyeon, the son of police chief Han Seok-hee, is seen running away from his mother as she attempts to drop him off at school, revealing their strained relationship. At Seoul University, as Professor Min Young-soo finishes teaching his archaeology class, he encounters Jeong Kai-hoon, who is distributing pamphlets about his history-related business in the hallway. The professor invites him to a meeting room where two monks, Sungwon and Il-ju, from a research lab, are eager to discuss a Buddha statue at the ancient Horin temple site dating back to the Goryeo dynasty. They suspect the statue may hold a malevolent spirit and are concerned about its excavation. They are relying on Jeong Kai-hoon's expertise in translating the inscriptions found on its blindfold. Jeong Kai-hoon identifies the language and negotiates payment for his expertise. The monks agree to his terms, emphasizing the urgency of the situation and providing him with their business card, urging prompt communication about any discoveries from his research. As Professor Min Young-soo drops Jeong Kai-hoon to the university's entrance, he invites him to a conference the next day, but Jeong Kai-hoon declines, citing the anniversary of his later daughter Ha-yeon's death. The professor then asks about Lee Soo-jin, Jeong Kai-hoon's ex-wife, but Jeong Kai-hoon stays quiet. Sensing his reluctance, the professor proposes they work together, recognizing both of their talents. He also offers Jeong Kai-hoon job opportunities, which he turns down. Before parting, the professor gives Jeong Kai-hoon a piece of charcoal from a lightning-struck tree, believing it wards off evil spirits. Jeong Kai-hoon thanks him and leaves the university. Later, a woman on a farm is picking vegetables when the weather suddenly turns unusual. Instead of normal rain, muddy droplets fall from the sky, which the townspeople attribute to pollution. Meanwhile, Jeong Kai-hoon makes an unsuccessful attempt to decipher the inscriptions on the Buddha's blindfold. He decides to seek help from Lee Soo-jin, sending her a message while she works on a project at home. Lee Soo-jin reads the inscription on the picture that Jeong Kai-hoon gives, and determines that it means heart. Later that night, Won-seok visits a bar and orders food, but he starts feeling uneasy in his eyes. Hurriedly, he rushes to the restroom to wash them. Inside, he sees a vision of his deceased father who is asking for money. Terrified, he pushes the vision away and returns to the bar. Despite being back at the bar, he continues to see his father following him, and now his eyes have turned completely white. He perceives his father as a monstrous figure and attacks him with a bottle. Other customers intervene to stop him, only to discover he's assaulting the restaurant owner. The police then take him into custody, and Han Seok-hee is called to handle the matter. On her way to the police station, Han Seok-hee's car is struck by hail from the sky, cracking her front windshield. At the same time, the taxi driver, previously affected by gazing at the Buddha's eyes, begins driving recklessly in the wrong direction, nearly colliding with Han Seok-hee's vehicle. She narrowly avoids the accident and arrives at the station, where she finds a large hailstone shaped like a human face lodged in her windshield. Inside, she learns about Won-seok's case and is shocked, as he is known as a respected and hardworking member of the community. Won-seok, seeing everyone as his father, attacks those around him, even injuring himself in the process. The police call for an ambulance, and he is taken to the hospital as he calms down. During the ambulance ride, medical professionals find no immediate explanation for his behavior. Following these events, Lee Soo-jin's neighbor calls her to discuss recent weather anomalies at the town office. Initially reluctant, Lee Soo-jin eventually accompanies her neighbor. Upon arrival, she notices a notice board announcing the exhibition of a Buddha statue in town, intended to attract tourists as a local attraction. Inside the office, the statue is prominently displayed in the hall, and Lee Soo-jin, along with other townspeople, views it, including its detailed exhibition. Alongside the statue, the blindfold is also on display. Concerned about its origin, Lee Soo-jin voices her objections to the office staff, who dismiss her concerns, citing expert oversight. Feeling powerless, she takes action by turning off the overhead light illuminating the Buddha statue. In the following scene, Yeon-ju, a recently released thug, contacts his friend to inquire about Han Du-kyeon. Learning that Han Du-kyeon is volunteering at the country office, Yeon-ju gathers his friends and heads there to confront him. In the monastery, monks Sungwon and Il-ju discuss the findings shared by Jeong Kai-hoon, and plan a visit to the town where the Buddha's statue is intended to be displayed, uncertain about its excavation status. They learn that the Buddha's eyes have a mesmerizing effect on people's emotions. Their conversation is interrupted as the head monk summons for Il-ju. The head monk informs him to halt research on the supposedly haunted Buddha statue, citing pressure from Governor Jang-soo to avoid controversy before the upcoming exhibition. Despite Il-ju's warnings of potential disaster, the head monk rebukes him for defaming the Buddhist reputation, and orders him to cease his investigations and refrain from visiting the town. After Il-ju leaves the head monk's office, he notices other monks fleeing the monastery. Upon inspection, he observes paintings on the walls shedding tears of blood, an indication of danger. Sungwon also informs him about the news of black rain occurring in the town. Back in town, as Han Du-kyeon is about to start his voluntary work at the country office, Yeon-ju and his group capture and viciously beat him. Despite the assault, Han Du-kyeon chooses not to escalate the situation and leaves the area quietly. After finishing his tasks, he attempts to get the necessary stamp from the officer, but due to the crowd of townspeople, he is unable to obtain it. Soon after, all the townspeople gather in the hall to discuss compensation for the recent weather issues. While Soo-jin scans the room, she spots a man who killed her daughter in the past. Devastated with the memory, she rushes to the bathroom and calls Jeong Kai-hoon, who has just visited a place tied to her daughter's memory, asking if the man has been released from jail. Kai-hoon is confused by her strange remarks, but Soo-jin ends the call without explaining further. Returning to the hall, she searches for the man. Meanwhile, the governor arrives and reassures everyone to focus on the upcoming Buddha statue exhibition rather than worry about current issues. Amid the discussion, a stranger wielding a sickle appears at the door. An elderly man from the crowd approaches to investigate, but is attacked by the sickle-wielding stranger, causing panic and chaos as people flee the hall. In the fuss, Soo-jin starts hallucinating, seeing the same man in the hall. People flee into the street. Chaos follows as a group of zombies start attacking the townsfolk. In the next episode, Won-seok lies unconscious in the hospital while his mother prays for his recovery. The doctor calls her mother to discuss his condition. Han-seok accompanies his mother to the doctor's cabin. The doctor explains that last night's test showed Won-seok had significantly elevated glutamate levels, affecting his cognitive functions. However, by morning, his levels return to normal, reassuring them not to worry. As Han-seok leaves the hospital, she receives a call from the office, but it disconnects before she can gather any information. When she tries calling back, nobody picks up the call. Back on the town streets, Soo-jin is overwhelmed by the chaos until a man pulls her inside the country office for safety. Violence erupts among the people outside, attacking each other with whatever weapons they can find. Even one of the governor's officers becomes infected and starts attacking her colleague with a pen. Just as things seem terrible, a man arrives and rescues the remaining governor's team. Meanwhile, Yeon-ju witnesses the street scene and becomes unusually excited. He hurries downstairs and joins in the violence. Inside the hall, Soo-jin saves Han Du-kyeon from a zombie attack. Everyone rushes into the hall and tries to lock the door, but a zombie's head gets stuck, preventing it from closing properly. They attempt to evacuate her, but she grips onto someone's leg. Suddenly, Yeon-ju drags the zombie outside and kills her. He then locks the door and instructs others to barricade it for safety. Meanwhile, Soo-jin begins to hallucinate, seeing the same courier man haunting her. Han Du-kyeon notices her distress and tries to inquire about it, but she pushes him away. She starts seeing vivid visions of herself and her daughter at home. A man knocks on the door, and when she opens it, she imagines seeing her daughter. Later, she hears someone entering their room, so she takes her daughter and hides in a closet. However, her daughter keeps calling for her father and eventually runs out of the closet. At the same time, a disaster alert reaches everyone in town, prompting the governor to assure them that help is on the way from the government. While the governor tries to reassure people in the exhibition hall, Soo-jin collapses unconscious on the floor. Witnessing this, Yeon-ju decides to kill Soo-jin, fearing she may be infected and could turn into a zombie. Han Du-kyeon intervenes to stop him, causing Yang Ju to beat him brutally. Jiang Kai-hoon approaches the town where militaries are blocking entry or exit, instructing everyone to turn back as the town is under lockdown. He steps out of his car and speaks with one of the soldiers, pleading to be allowed through because his wife is ill. When another soldier intervenes, he mentions his mother's diabetes and explains he just came from the hospital. Despite his reasons, the soldiers remain firm and do not allow him to enter. Han Seok-hee finds herself stuck in her car at the town border, where a tense confrontation is unfolding between civilians and military personnel regarding entry into the locked-down town. Meanwhile, Jiang Kai-hoon, anxious to reach the town, attempts to contact Soo-jin. But Han Du-kyung answers the call and informs him that Soo-jin had collapsed. Concerned, Jiang Kai-hoon mentions Han Du-kyung's name, prompting Han Seok-hee to take the phone from him. She quickly engages in a conversation with her son, Han Du-kyung, who is surprised and relieved to hear his mother's voice. Han Du-kyung shares their location with her before the governor abruptly seizes the phone from him. The governor quickly asks Han Seok-hee for help in rescuing them from the country office, where they are stranded after realizing that she is the chief of police. After ending the call, Han Seok-hee inquires if Jiang Kai-hoon had a vehicle available. Upon confirming he did, she instructs him to follow her as they are about to approach the town from a different route. Meanwhile, inside the country office, the governor assures everyone that the rescue team is on their way, releasing relief among those present. However, Yang Ju raises a concern about identifying those who had been exposed to the black rain. Some individuals in the crowd admit to being caught in the rain, unaware of the potential danger. Without hesitation, Yang Ju kicks an elderly man who had been in the rain the previous day, asserting his belief that the virus is spread through the rain. He insists that anyone exposed to the rain should be restrained as a precautionary measure. Next, the monks at the monastery learn that the town designated to hold the Buddha's statue is under lockdown and experiencing unusual events. Additionally, they also realize that the Buddha's eyes have already been revealed. In the next episode, Yang Ju and Han Du-kyung are seen riding bikes together and confiding in each other about their personal struggles. Yang Ju reveals that when he was in 4th grade, his mother brought a stranger home claiming he was his father. The man would abuse Yang Ju daily for not addressing him as father. Yang Ju then assures Han Du-kyung that even though he lacks a father figure in his life, he can rely on Yang Ju for support. Han Du-kyung reflects on his own past experiences while he sits down in the country's office hall. In the current situation, everyone who admitted to being exposed to the rain is bound and taken to a separate room. Inside, there is chaos with people pleading and sobbing to be released, while Soo-jin quietly sheds tears. Meanwhile, Yang Ju instructs one of his friends to watch over them while he steps out of the room. Outside, the streets are still filled with panicked townspeople screaming and running around. The governor switches on the television to catch up on the latest news. According to the news report, the rain carried a virus that infected everyone in the town. This revelation prompts Yang Ju to question the governor, who struggles to provide any answers as he hasn't conducted any test or research on the matter. At this point, someone suggests that he has a bus parked outside and proposes escaping in it. Yang Ju intervenes, reminding them about the zombies outside. He proposes that if the governor allows him to eliminate the zombies, then trying to escape by bus might be a viable option. In the room where everyone is restrained, Soo-jin's eyes begin to turn white as she recalls a memory from the past when she is delivering a lecture to her class. After the lecture ends, she receives a call from Jiang Kai-hoon, informing her to pick up their daughter, Ha-young, because he's stuck in a meeting. She also asks about their plans for the evening, as it's Jiang Kai-hoon's birthday, but he postpones the celebration to the weekend. This frustrates Soo-jin, and she angrily demands him to cancel his meeting. However, Jiang Kai-hoon insists he can't, and abruptly ends the call. Later, after Ha-young gets off her school bus and doesn't see her parents, she decides to walk home. Soo-jin hurriedly drives to pick up Ha-young. While waiting at a traffic signal, Soo-jin spots Ha-young on the road. Ha-young rushes towards a vehicle, mistaking it for her father's. Soo-jin tries to stop her, but struggles to release her seatbelt, which is stuck. Currently, she is frantically attempting to free herself from the rope tying her hands. Just as she manages to get out of the car in the past and calls out to her daughter, a courier vehicle collides with Ha-young as she halts in the middle of the road. Han Seok-hee and Jiang Kai-hoon take an alternate route to the town, which had been abandoned after a highway was constructed. While driving, they hear a news report about the black rain containing chemicals that might indicate a terrorist attack, though the reporter emphasizes that definitive conclusions await chemical test results. Upon entering the town, they encounter the unsettling weather and experience the black rain firsthand. As they drive further, Jiang Kai-hoon stops the car and examines a puddle of the black rain despite Han Seok-hee's warning not to touch it. He describes it as ominous, prompting him to question the unusual weather from the previous day. Han Xiaqi mentions there was also hail, which leads Jiang Kai-hun to ask if the hail resembled a human face. She confirms this with a nod. Suddenly, a crow appears nearby, drawing their attention. Jiang Kai-hun queries if the crow was present earlier, just as a murder of crows swoops down and begins attacking them. They flee for safety, but Jiang Kai-hun is struck by one of the crows during their escape. They quickly seek refuge in the nearest house, but outside, crows continue to attack the windows, trying to break in. Inside the house, they move to the living room to evade the persistent crows. Jiang Kai-hun, observing these events, concludes that there is a malevolent spirit in the town. Intrigued by his statement, Han Xiaqi inquires about his profession. Without delay, Jiang Kai-hun heads to the kitchen, giving no response to her questions. Han Xiaqi notices a hole through which the crows are attempting to enter the shelter, and covers it with a plate, allowing Jiang Kai-hun to proceed undisturbed. In the kitchen, Jiang Kai-hun discovers a packet of sugar, which he spreads on the dining table, carefully drawing symbols on it with a fork. Once finished, he calls Han Xiaqi to join him under the table for safety. As Han Xiaqi leaves the hole uncovered, a murder of crows flies inside but surprisingly does not attack them this time. It appears that the symbols drawn by Jiang Kai-hun have rendered them invisible, or protected. Witnessing this strange phenomenon, Han Xiaqi is shocked and questions Jiang Kai-hun about his actions. However, in that moment of inquiry, Jiang Kai-hun is unable to provide a definitive explanation. Once the situation calms down inside the house, Han Xiaqi notices two dead bodies, one of whom is identified as Yang Ju's mother. She attempts to approach them, but Jiang Kai-hun stops her, warning of the dangers beyond their sheltered boundary. Demanding clarity, Han Xiaqi presses Jiang Kai-hun for an explanation. He asserts that the monstrous rain is a divine warning to humanity about approaching evil spirits, emphasizing that the rain itself is not harmful. He suggests that their current mission is to determine the cause of the unusual rain phenomena. He then dials Il-ju's number and inquires about the Buddhist statue. Il-ju informs him that the statue is on display at the country office in town, and its blindfold has been removed. He explains that anyone who gazes into the Buddha's eyes sees a vision of their own hell. They begin experiencing auditory and visual hallucinations. After sharing all pertinent information about the statue, he ends the call. Later, Sun Won discovers that the malevolent spirit inhabiting the Buddha's statue is Quan, a former monk who was executed for corruption. The ancestors have it that even after his death, Quan's spirit wandered the temple grounds without a head. Now, he possesses individuals, compelling them to commit violent acts against each other. After receiving the information from Il-ju, they hastily decide to leave the area and head towards the vehicle. However, as they breach the protective barrier, they are immediately swarmed by a massive murder of crows. Acting wisely, Jiang Kai-hun smears mud from the ground onto his car and climbs on the hood to draw the protective symbols. Despite being attacked by a crow during the process, Jiang Kai-hun manages to enter the car, but accidentally drops his keys on the ground. Han Xiaqi quickly rushes out of the vehicle to retrieve the keys, despite being attacked by the crows herself. She successfully grabs the car key from the ground and swiftly returns to join him inside the car. Thanks to the symbols, the crows gradually disperse, allowing them to safely drive into the town. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave 1,000 likes or 100 comments if you'd like us to continue part 2. Thank you.